Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Spirit Speakeasy. I'm Joy Giovanni, Joyful Medium. I'm a working psychic medium, energy healer, and spiritual gifts mentor. This podcast is like a seat at the table in a secret club, but with mediums, mystics, and the spiritual luminaries of our time. So come behind the velvet ropes with me and see inside my world as I chat insider style with profoundly gifted souls. We go deep, share juicy stories, laugh a lot, and it wouldn't be a speakeasy without great insider secrets and tips. You might even learn that you have some gifts of your own. So step inside the Spirit Speakeasy. Hey, beautiful souls, welcome back or welcome in for another episode of Spirit Speakeasy. On today's episode, I am going to share with you 7 signs the universe is trying to get your attention and what to do about it. Have you ever had a moment where it felt like the universe was trying to get your attention? Maybe for you, you've been asking the universe for guidance, but maybe you're uncertain about what you're looking for as a response back. Or maybe the universe has been trying to get your attention, but you've been missing all the signs. I think there's so much that we are worried about or are thinking about or are trying to figure out in our own lives and communities, let alone the world as a whole, that sometimes we're focused so many other places that it can be really easy to even forget that we asked for a sign from the universe to guide us or help us along. Have you ever had an experience where you keep seeing the same numbers or hearing the same phrases or experiencing like a series of events that feel too connected or specific to be just a coincidence? These aren't random occurrences, they are messages. The universe, your guides, your higher self are always communicating, nudging you towards your alignment, towards clarity, towards growth. The thing is, signs don't always arrive as like a booming voice from the sky, or don't we all wish, or a flashing neon sign that wakes us up in the middle of the night, right? More often, they come in whispers, subtle patterns, gentle, or sometimes not so gentle redirections. If you've been feeling stuck or even just uncertain, searching for some guidance, you might already be receiving messages. You just need to notice them. Let's dive into these 7 powerful ways that the universe might be trying to get your attention and what you can do when and if you recognize them. I want to start with this quote. It's something I have heard all along my development. Many of you who've worked with me in courses or on workshops know that I have been doing personal development and back in the day we used to call it self-help for many years, probably since I was about 14 years old. And this phrase has come over and over, and I just never really thought about perhaps like who originated it. So I looked it up, and according to ChatGPT, it's a widely circulated phrase in spiritual and motivational communities, but its exact origin is not clear. So have you ever heard this? The universe only has 3 answers: yes, not yet, or I have something better for you. I just want to float that out there in case you haven't heard it. For me, this has always really helped me along my journey to know that I am supported, that even if something that I think I want in that moment is elusive or keeps slipping through my grasp somehow, I remind myself of that phrase. The universe only has 3 answers: yes, not yet, or I have something better for you. So I'm just going to put that put that out there as a little seed for you. But let's go through these 7 signs. This first sign that the universe is trying to get your attention is hearing or seeing your name repeatedly. This can be a first name, this can be a nickname, or however you prefer to identify yourself in the world. If you go by a nickname, it could also be like your regular full name. If that's not, if it's something that like only your grandma used to call you that name, for example. I actually had this happen just this last week. I was at sort of like an antiques mall. If you've ever been to something like that, they have little booths, and each booth is like typically not run by a person sitting there, but they just have their stuff in there, and you can kind of wander through and look at all the things. And I was there with a friend, and all of a sudden we were in this one booth that someone had, and they had these sort of large, I want to say like bigger than a coaster, probably like a quarter of a sheet of paper size, maybe that's like 4 inches by 4 inches, square letters, almost looking like Scrabble tiles. And as I turned around, the three letters that they had standing up on their display was my name, J, the O, and the Y. I didn't even realize they had other of these tiles of letters until we were kind of looking around their little booth. But I was just like, I don't often, it actually was one of my complaints as a kiddo. My name is not usually on stuff. Like when I was a kid, other kids would get like the bicycle license plate with their name on it from the vacation, or the, keychain with their name on it, or the pencils with their name on it. My name didn't really come on stuff except at Christmas time, which I found like even more annoying somehow. So I'm not typically used to seeing my name outside of like the Christmas stuff, if you will. So I noticed it and I was like, oh, Joy, okay, there it is. Not 30 seconds later, I kid you not, over the radio speaker of the entire place. And I didn't think that they were playing a radio station. There was no like DJ type person that was coming on periodically, but once in a while there'd be like commercials chime in. And I don't know if you guys are all old enough to remember this, but it started playing this like candy jingle for that candy Almond Joy. And it was a song, a very old commercial song that I haven't heard in like a really long time. It wasn't just the little short jingle of today, but it was like a longer, and I heard my name in it. And then I was like, oh, that's the Almond Joy song. That's really weird. I was still standing in that same booth actually when I heard it. And I just was like, okay. So for me, I know, okay, universe is trying to get my attention. I'm paying attention. Hello. I acknowledge these signs, and let's keep it pushing. So something like that can happen to you. And it can be just that simple, where it's like, you hear your name called out from somewhere, and then it's not at you, but it's like another person saying, oh, hi, that's me. So it can be lots of ways that this might come to you, but just paying attention for hearing or seeing your name repeatedly, why it happens, your guides, your higher self, or the universe trying to make something stand out to you. So what you can do is kind of pause and ask, like, what was I just thinking about? What's coming up for me? Like, is an emotion coming up, or were you just kind of thinking about something or asking a question? It can be if you're just dipping your toes into your spiritual work or getting more diligent in your practice. If you're shifting something in your spiritual work, it can be the universe just letting you know like you're on the right track, or we're in communication. But often I encourage people, like, if there's something you were just thinking about, or if there's something that's been on your heart that you've been kind of trying to make a choice or wanting some guidance about, it's letting you know you are being supported. And back to that original quote that I gave, maybe it's something that you're wanting to happen right now and it's not happening. So maybe some of that validation is the universe saying, like, I hear that you're asking for this, but not yet, right? So that's the first sign, is hearing or seeing your name repeatedly. Sign number 2 that the universe is trying to get your attention is recurring numbers. Now, I know we've talked about recurring numbers before. You guys know I love numbers. I'm not just talking about 1111 or 444 or 777. In this instance, because all of those can be the universe trying to get your attention. And if you haven't done my free signs mini course, Sign Magnet, it's right on the homepage of the website, joyfulmedium.com. And I give you a cheat sheet in those lessons for each, series of numbers, 111, 222, 333, etc., and what those specifically mean. But this is like if you're not only seeing one of those, like if you see only 444 all the time, that means the 444 meaning. If you're seeing lots of recurring numbers, not just one set, right? Maybe it's throughout the day and you're seeing different recurring numbers. Sometimes random, like quote unquote random numbers that keep appearing are a hello from the universe, or the universe trying to get your attention. And this might show up in lots of ways. It could be, I think we all have a lot of digital clocks around us these days, whether it's on our computers, our phones, our cars are often digital now. So it could be on a digital clock. It could be on a real clock if you have one of those around you that still counts. It could be on like a receipt, license plates that you pass in the day, a door code. Here in San Diego, a lot of our like building restrooms will have like a little code you have to punch in, or I used to have a car that had like a little code you punch in on the door, which I don't I don't know if cars are like that anymore, but codes and things. Phone numbers, you might see a phone number call and you might keep noticing recurring numbers in phone numbers. So it's any way that it gets to you. It doesn't just have to be only one way. We come across lots of numbers in our day. Maybe you keep seeing, for example, like 237 everywhere. And then you realize it relates to like an important date or an address or a moment in your life. I have a number like that has been kind of my whole life, a little hello from the universe. I'm not going to share what it is. It's kind of personal. But it's a time. It's like a clock time. And I see it often. I see it sometimes, like if I'm checking into a hotel, it might be my hotel room number, for example. If I get a dry cleaning ticket, it might be on there. And for me, because I have it set as like a personal sign, which you can totally do, it lets me know, hello from the universe, you're on the right track, or like a little wink of like, okay, this is going to be good. Like a little finding a 4-leaf clover is often how I take it. And it has shown up on hotel room doors and on tag numbers that I've had to wear when I've been in like groups of people, for example. So it's like a badge type thing if you go to a seminar or that kind of thing. So it shows up in all these really fun ways. But what to do is just kind of keep a journal if you want of these repeating numbers, or you can even track how they show up when you're making decisions. You can, like we were talking about, assign like a birth date or a specific time, or even like a sports jersey number, for example. Things that you might pick as like a lucky number, you can set it up as a sign with the universe and say like, okay, when I see, I would avoid the like common recurring ones like 777, but you could do it like, say your jersey number was 17. You could do it like, oh, when I see 17s or like 17, 17, 17, I'll take that as a sign from the universe. Maybe it's just 2 17s. Maybe it's a totally different time. Maybe it's, maybe you had a kiddo that was born at 8:42. And so that's going to be your sign, 8:42. So it can be any number that you choose. But if you can't identify what it is, just start kind of making some notes and doing some noticing. The other thing with the numbers, the recurring numbers for me, I think I say this in that sign course, but for me, if it's like I keep seeing ascending numbers, meaning like 2 3 4 7 8 9 1 2 3, it's my sign from the universe that like you're on the right track, you're moving forward. Especially when it's a project or something I'm working on that I feel like is maybe like not moving forward, or I'm like, is this still the right direction with this? And it doesn't even have to be that I formally like quote unquote ask the universe. I can just be kind of thinking about it in my own thoughts and musings. And then in the world, those things will start showing up and I'll know like, okay, I have been wondering if I'm on the right track with this thing. And now I'm seeing these, 2 3 4 5 7 8 9 11 12. And I'll know like, okay, this is an indication that like, yes, I'm on the right track. I'm still moving forward with this. I hope that makes sense the way I'm explaining it. So that is the recurring numbers as hellos from the universe trying to get your attention. Our third sign that the universe is trying to get your attention is objects or symbols repeating themselves. So this is sort of similar to what we just talked about with the numbers, but a little bit different. This can be like a particular animal, a word, a phrase, or even a symbol keeps showing up in unexpected places. A symbol could be like a feather, a key. Again, it could be a series of numbers, but this is more like objects and symbols that we're talking about here. For example, if you keep seeing butterflies or a certain bird or a specific tarot card keeps popping up when you're doing like readings for yourself, you can know that this recurring idea is a hello from the universe. And I've seen people get really specific with this one. Like I heard a story about someone who would collect found playing cards, like just regular cards that you would play a card game with, and in their New York. And I guess it's like a weird phenomena in New York that there are these random playing cards that just kind of come across your path around the city. And so this person would find these playing cards and know like that's a sign from the universe, saying hello to them, or like this little back and forth volley from the universe. It could be anything you want, and you could choose it, right? Because sometimes I think one of the challenges is we think like, oh, I asked for a sign, but I don't know what it's going to be. We'll just pick something. I knew someone else that postcards used to come across their path, but they were always postcards that had like tropical pictures on them. It was the weirdest thing. And I know this is what's kind of a little tough about these mystical experiences, even these momentary ones, is to explain it to someone else. It might seem like, okay, well, so what? You find playing cards or postcards come across your path. Like, what does that mean? But when you live it and you start to see how in odd ways these things make their way to you, it becomes a little bit more like, oh, okay, that's really weird. Like the playing card thing, for example. I know sometimes they would just like get into the subway or into a cab and there'd be like a card on the seat, and it's just like things that are just so weird that you're like, okay, this is so strange, I can't even deny it, type of a thing. So sometimes it can be in signs and symbols, and sometimes it can be our loved ones, right? If you have a certain sign with them, or if you, for example, think of like butterflies with your mom, let's say, then those butterflies would be from her, but you could take it to kind of an extra level. So for me, what I do with butterflies in particular, I have a certain type of butterfly that is a hello from a certain specific person on the other side, who I love very much. But then I have assigned the other, not all of the colors, but a couple of the other colors of butterflies to mean different things. So a white butterfly means one thing to me. A yellow butterfly means something else to me. An orange butterfly means something else to me. And I don't use it in my work as a medium when someone's loved ones are communicating with me. I don't use like signs and symbols. This is all just for me. And I think it's just adds this like layer of richness to our life to be able to have these almost like more tangible communications in the world. You can do all of this through the sensing, but I think if you're in a place where you're uncertain or questioning, sometimes just sensing, it can feel challenging to us. So that's why I'm trying to give some alternate ways. Okay, so that third way, what do you do? Like if you feel like you keep seeing this recurring sign or symbol or phrase or word in the world, well, you could consider doing a little research around the spiritual meaning. Like if you keep having wolves come across your path, you could look at what the spiritual meaning of that is. Or if it's like a tarot card that keeps crossing your readings or keeps coming up for you in readings you're watching, you can look up the meaning of that card. But also trust what the symbol means to you. Signs and symbols are often highly personal. It's why I don't use them that way in my work as a medium, because a butterfly might mean one thing to me, or a rainbow is probably easier. A rainbow might mean one thing to me personally with my own loved ones, but if I make it mean only one thing, it could mean 1,000 things to different people's loved ones. It could indicate a vacation they went on. It could be a song. It could be a sports team. It could be a lot of things. So they're often so highly personal. So it's okay to have your own personal meanings, and I would trust what it means for you. So say that you're looking up the spiritual meaning and you see like a bunch of different meanings, just go with the one that resonates with you the most, or that you feel most drawn to. And that's an easy way to do it. But also if you feel like, okay, I know that, for example, the phoenix is the sign for like rising from the ashes or like rebirth, regeneration. But for me, I feel like it's a sign that I'm like winning or like going to be on the right direction. Take it as what it means to you. I hope that makes sense the way I'm explaining it. I just really love signs. I think you guys know I get so excited about signs. Okay, so the number 4 sign that spirit is trying to get your attention and communicate with you is technology and electronics acting up. Now, I want to just preface this with saying, if you are someone, I know certain people that technology and electronics act up around them 100% of the time. So that could be their own electromagnetic field, their own energy. But if you're someone who like technology works fine for you and it's like a glitch that is a new thing, glitches, phones dropping calls, texts not sending, lights flickering when you're having like a deep conversation or when you just were thinking about something. Some examples could be like, your music, suddenly you have it on like a shuffle and you're thinking about something and the perfect song comes on that answers the question that you had or that speaks to whatever that was that you were just thinking with or wrestling with. Or for example, like your phone or your TV or your system turns on like all by itself and it's not controlled by some kind of like Alexa type device. So technology can be a really interesting sign from the universe. It could be like, this light always works and now it's not working and I just tested the bulb and it's fine. And then you go away for a little while and you're thinking about something and you come back and then it works. It's like, oh, okay, what was I just thinking about? What is this trying to tell me? You know what I mean? I am a big believer for like, test the light bulb, test the light, make sure it's not just like lights do actually break and light bulbs do actually burn out, right? So we want to test those things. Like, let's be real at the same time. Music is a big one for me. I know it's not technically maybe technology, but it works through technology. And I believe the universe, our guides, our loved ones can kind of, I don't love this word, but manipulate or work with technology to get us signs. So I know for sure in my bones that loved ones on the other side have put songs across my path personally and clients of mine, because it comes through sometimes in readings. But really, the universe can communicate with us through these little funky technological things. I even sometimes think, for example, where I live right now, there's an elevator in the building, and there are some other little mechanical things that need to work to like exit the building, for example. Now, sometimes I've gone in something like the thing I'm thinking of specifically is we have this like trash chute thing where you like push this button and it opens and you put your trash in and it goes to the basement, down all the floors. So sometimes that's broken. And if I was to like take my trash and I'm leaving and the thing is broken, the button's broken and it's stuck or whatever, I have to take my trash back to my place and then go to the elevator. Well, for me, I often think that like, okay, well, there's something in the mix here that I just needed those extra 2 minutes or 3 minutes of time that this is going to add to me going down and leaving in my car. The universe is trying to line things up for me differently. So I think in that way, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's like a specific message that we're needing to figure out and reduce to. It's just knowing, oh, okay, these little glitches are perhaps just trying to line me up with other opportunities, someone's path I'm supposed to cross, something that's supposed to miss me today. Maybe I'm not supposed to run into this person at the store and spirit's trying to like line that up for me or disalign. I don't know, whatever the word is with that, misalign. So I think there's lots of ways that technology and electronics and the way they act and react can be the universe trying to communicate with us. So what to do if this is happening? Pay attention again to what you were thinking about, what you are doing. But then also notice your emotional reaction. Do you get really annoyed when something techie happens? Do you get panicked? Or do you, can you get to a place where you start to realize like, oh, okay, probably this is working on my behalf for some reason that I don't know. And I'm just going to say thank you and just take it as, something that is in my benefit, right? So it's a little bit of a rework, but I think often that could possibly be in the potentials of what's happening for us. Okay, so that is the number 4 way that the universe might be trying to communicate with you right now. The number 5 sign that the universe is trying to get your attention is this idea of obstacles or redirections that you can't ignore. Now, what do I mean by that? This can be something like, you have plans and they fall apart. And sometimes it can be this thing of like, you keep trying to make a plan with someone and every time we have a plan, it doesn't work out. Either, someone gets sick or someone has to travel unexpectedly, or every time we try to make this plan, it keeps over and over again, something comes up. Things like delays or things not working out on the time timing that we thought they would. Like we thought a contract was going to wrap up by the end of the month, and due to delays or other circumstances, it's now going to take another 6 weeks, for example. These types of things are often signs that you're being rerouted. It's sort of trailing into what we were just talking about, where universe, spirit can kind of nudge us or direct us a little bit. It's not taking over our free will, but it's just an effort to line us up with either meeting a person in like a quote unquote chance encounter. I'm thinking I just got to go to Las Vegas recently and record some podcasts with someone else on their podcast, which was a great time. And I ended up shifting my flight to take a flight that was like 2 hours earlier. And I was on the plane with this like wonderful young woman and her gorgeous little baby girl. And we were talking, I was playing with the baby and we were talking, and she had said, oh yeah, I was supposed to be on a flight this morning and I ended up changing it last minute to take this later flight. And I just thought it was so funny because she changed her flight to go later. I changed my flight to go earlier, and we ended up sitting together. And I don't know, something just too serendipitous about that, right? So I just think it's really interesting how sometimes it's our own choice and plan. Sometimes it's like maybe there was a delayed flight, or you had a delay yesterday, or something changed in your schedule. I often have like this strange thing happen where I'll be like there'll be an odd spot on my calendar. How do I want to say this? Like maybe it's a spot that no one's filling, like an open appointment that no one's filling. I've even had it where like 3 appointments that are on my calendar for like a Wednesday all seem to get canceled, and then that day is suddenly open. When that happens, I've really tracked this over the years because this has been a thing for me for many, many years now. When that happens, when I just have like a big gap in my calendar or a day that like nothing seems to be sticking to, I know that is spirit giving me a heads up of like, you're going to need this day for something. And every single time it seems to be true that something happens where I need that day for something else. Most recently, there was one in the winter. I can't exactly remember when it was, but I remember it was cold out, where my daughter just wasn't feeling well and got sick, and she lives like about 30, 40 minutes away. I needed to go where she was and be with her. And it just so happened that for like a few weeks, like on that one day, my calendar often books a few weeks ahead, just nothing was sticking to that day. I might have even had like a doctor's appointment that got canceled, and then I opened it for clients, and clients were popping on that day and then rescheduling to a different day. So I just think when things like that happen, has that ever happened to you? Am I the only one that this specific like weird little thing happens where your calendar will just have a clearing, that's setting you up for actually needing something that day? So that sometimes happens to me, but it can also just be delays, rerouting, plans falling apart, things not working out, that kind of a thing. So what to do? Instead of resisting, which I think sometimes our human nature is like, oh, I'm trying to get this thing done, or like, this is when this was supposed to happen. So instead of resisting, just see if you can ask yourself, where is this redirecting me? What's the bigger picture here? I have a little mantra about this actually that I've been saying for many, many years. Delays are in my favor. Sometimes I'll say delays are always in my favor, because I do really hang on to this idea that the universe, higher power, whatever word you like in there, source knows the timeline and is orienting things. There are always things going on behind the scenes on my behalf, is another one I say all the time. So delays are always in my favor because it's always lining me up for this or something better, right? For a not yet, for a I have something better for you, for a yes. So we've all put all of these, Abraham Hicks calls them rockets of desire. We've all put these thoughts, these ideas, these desires into the universe just by thinking about them. And part of aligning with those ideas is not only our own energy, which is some of it, our free will contribution to seize opportunities, but it's timing. How often do we talk about divine timing? And if we can accept, right? I've long ago accepted that divine timing is a thing in my life. It is relevant to me, and I can trust that when timing is in order, things will roll out. So delays are always in my favor. So hopefully you can kind of take some of that on board or see how that fits for you. I do also tend to plan for delays. I like to plan a little buffer. I mean, to be quite honest, even though I only live a few miles from my office, I try to go in an hour ahead of my first client just to make sure the temperature is right and make sure, in case something has come up that I need to handle when I'm there. Or so I do also, just as who I am as a person, plan for delays and plan for, if I'm traveling, I always have a little snack and and just be smart also. But let me know what you guys think about that idea, delays being in your favor, and this idea of obstacles or redirections being a communication from the universe trying to line you up with things that are for you. And you don't even need to know. And often I believe we won't know in that moment what that's lining us up for, but later it might become clear. It also might not become clear. I think this is one of the things that in our life review we get to see where those threads were twining together or pulling apart, and where it's like, oh, had I gone 30 minutes later, I would have missed this whole interaction, for example, right? So we might ultimately understand, oh, that's crazy. This happened and this delay and this is what it led to. But there might be other times where there's too many synchronistic things going on all at once, and we might not understand how all of them lined up to create the perfect timing, the perfect ingredients for whatever encounter or thing we're supposed to experience. So the sixth sign that the universe is trying to communicate with you, trying to get your attention, is abrupt life shakeups. Now, you've heard me say, if you've been here for any length of time, that we live in a chaotic world, that this earth plane, this earth school has some chaos. It has some contrast. It has a lot going on here. So sometimes things just happen. But I also believe that sometimes the universe shakes things up in a way that feels sudden or even chaotic. This could be things like ending of a relationship, jobs being lost, unexpected move, kind of major disruption in routine. And some of this could be, again, that obstacles and redirections trying to line us up with what's most in alignment for what we're wanting to experience. These events can feel jarring, but they often serve as these like mini wake-up calls and push us, sometimes as a nudge, and sometimes it feels a little more pushy than a nudge to me in my life anyway, pushing us a little closer to our right path, or kind of just back in the center of our path, so to speak. And it might be something we wouldn't have chosen otherwise. Sometimes to stay comfortable, we allow ourselves to become very uncomfortable little by little to avoid change. The example I'm thinking of two, and I think this can apply to any area of our life, but I'm thinking of someone I know that was in a work situation where there was nowhere for them to grow in this position. It wasn't like they were waiting for a promotion. They had kind of gone as far as they could in the department they were in, but it was a nice salary. It was nice benefits. They liked the schedule. They liked the drive. So there was a lot of things going for it. But the way the department was going, the decisions that were being made there was giving this person like literal physical stomach problems from the stress, the anxiety. The direction this was going felt out of alignment for them, out of integrity. They didn't like participating in some of the meetings and things that they were being asked to participate in. There were some personalities that felt like they weren't honoring and respecting their boundaries. They were feeling at times, like as time went on, they even started feeling a little bit, well, more than a little bit eventually, but bullied and oppressed and manipulated a little bit. So over time, it was like a couple year period that I was working with this client. And over time, things were getting incrementally worse and worse and worse. And policies were tightening, and they didn't even get their like proper time off and breaks anymore. And there was all this pressure, and it was like a pressure cooker getting worse and worse and worse and tighter, and squeezing them tighter and tighter. But sometimes, whether it's a challenging work situation or an unhealthy relationship or an unhealthy habit that we're doing like by ourselves, for example, things can layer in so incrementally that we just allow ourselves to be more and more and more squeezed or uncomfortable because this idea of change or going over this hurdle of doing something different or quitting our job or leaving our relationship and having to find a new place to live and move and all the things feels so much, so overwhelming, that our human nature sometimes is to stay still, even though if it was like from the outside looking in, if it was someone else's situation, you could probably pretty clearly say like, well, I don't think this is healthy and working for you anymore. But sometimes when it's our own situation, we can allow ourselves to become so uncomfortable just to avoid change. Has this ever happened to you? It certainly happened to me. And I have a pretty high tolerance. So I really sometimes let things get well, I used to. I'm better now, to an unhealthy tipping point. But this idea of these abrupt life shakeups that can be this sixth sign that the universe is trying to get your attention. I sometimes see this one as almost like it acts like a shaking the carpet, right? Like if you think of like if you had like an area rug and you wanted to shake the dust out, you might like grab it from one end and just shake it like a wave, right? That's sort of how it feels when it's happening in our life. It's like someone just shaking up your whole life and turning things around, or things start coming to your awareness in ways that you just can't ignore anymore. You just start really recognizing that this isn't the space for you. So if this is happening, this is I think maybe the lesser percentage of time that this happens, because these are often kind of big changes in our life. So it's not something that happens every single day, like seeing a sign or a synchronicity in this, and the earlier examples. But this is like a big shakeup often. It happened for me once, even with like a health event. I wasn't listening to the signs. I wasn't listening to the smaller signs. I was spreading myself too thin. I was super stressed out. It was all these things constricting at the same time, and end up having a health event that kind of woke me up, so to speak, and shocked me into not quite being forced. Like I still definitely had some free will choice in there, but it's almost like the choice is so obvious and necessary that we can't ignore it anymore, but we still always have the choice. It's why sometimes we probably all have examples of people that that they know that this is not the right thing for them, or that this is unhealthy, or that this is hurting them. And it can be like in any area of their life, but they're not willing to make a different choice, and it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So these shakeups are often clearing space or removing what's no longer serving us, even if we don't realize it in the moment. It's one of those powerful aspects of looking in retrospect, right? We realize like, oh my gosh, I didn't, because like I was saying, it's so incremental, and we keep adjusting ourselves to try to like not have to move, to try to stay comfortable. And we get used to that discomfort. And it's only in retrospect that we might realize like, my gosh, that was really unhealthy. That was really bad. This gal that I was talking about in that work example did ultimately end up leaving that workplace through a series of events, got a different job, settled in, and it was a much different culture and environment in that new workplace. And then many months later, as we were working on the energy, was able to look back and say like, wow, I was really struggling. I didn't even realize at the time how, like, she knew it was tough, but it was like even tougher than she had realized. Have you ever had that? I definitely have. So instead of immediately reacting with frustration or fear, like what's this space clearing for? It's almost like just start asking yourself, what is this clearing space for in my life? What is this redirecting me towards or away from? Is this something that I've been getting gentle nudges or been really avoiding or ignoring for a long time? Often we get these subtler, quieter signs for quite some time before this big abrupt, quote unquote abrupt life shakeup. It feels abrupt when it's happening, but often it's like that thing that we know that we're supposed to be doing to not hurt ourselves or to strengthen our body, for example, and we're not listening and we're not doing it. It's usually something that we kind of knew wasn't working or wasn't healthy or needed to shift, and we weren't willing to do it for ourselves. So it's usually not comfortable when it happens, but these are sometimes saving grace moments, I believe, because had we continued down that path, perhaps we would have met something that really wasn't meant for us in this lifetime. So even these uncomfortable, abrupt, shocking life shakeups really are to remove what's no longer serving us, even if we don't realize it. And for us, the work is to trust that something better is being aligned for us. So a little mantra in here, if you're going through a big life shakeup, could be, this is happening for me, not to me. And again, often we, want what we want. We can be kind of stubborn as human beings, and we might like want our cake and eat it too. We might realize like, okay, this is the healthier path for me, but I'm not willing to give up this other thing, person, scenario, whatever it is. So be watching for those abrupt life shakeups. It's not that we need to avoid them. They're really uncomfortable. And if we would listen to the nudges sooner, they wouldn't need to get so loud. So in a way, even these abrupt life shakeups are within our free will control. Someone's getting their life shaken up by a motorcycle out there. I don't know if you guys can hear that car alarm going off out there from a group of motorcycles that just drove by, but that's kind of how it feels. Okay, now this seventh sign that the universe is trying to get your attention has to do with messengers in the world. I think we've all experienced this one in some way or another. Have you ever had the experience where it seems like you keep hearing the same message repeatedly in the world, like mirrored back to you? Maybe it's through music, a song, maybe it's through a coworker, maybe it's through a reading that you receive or watch. If you watch like my weekly readings or someone else's, maybe it's through a book or a podcast that comes across your path. Maybe you're sitting on your commute to work and you see a billboard or a sign in the subway advertising, and there's a phrase on there. But it's often like through many different vehicles or ways of communication in the world that we're hearing different versions of the same message. I can't tell you how frequently I hear it in readings when I give guidance or when I become aware of an aspect like of their life, for example, and tell them something. Not all the time, but so often people will say, oh yeah, I was just having a conversation about that. Or, oh yeah, I was just thinking about that. Or, oh yeah, people keep saying that to me. People keep saying that I should read that book or that I should work on that. I've had this example several times where like multiple different people plus podcasts plus other talks I've come across are all talking about the same theory, or several people recommend the same book and it's like an older book, like not a brand new book that everyone's talking about. So I think you know what I'm saying, where there can be these different vehicles of message that come to us through the world. Typically those are pretty clear what they are. It's like read the book or look into this topic or look into this thing, or sometimes it's like, oh, you would really love this place, right? You would really love this restaurant, this museum, this whatever show. And if several people are saying it to you, chances are the universe wants you to know there's something there for you, some grain of information, of an experience, of a something that will add to your life and to your experience based on what you're telling the universe you want, or what your soul needs or wants to experience towards its highest and greatest good in this lifetime. Sometimes these can be over a short period of time. Like it might be like several people in the same week period, say the same thing to you or recommend the same thing to you. This can also be over many years. The first, this is funny. So for me, for example, I have another one that was over many, many years. I think a lot of you have heard part of my story where my first mentor that I met driving the ice cream truck told me that I was psychic, but the other things that she told me was that I was a profound healer and that I was meant to be a teacher and to teach many, and some other things in there as well. Now I was, oh geez, what year was that? I want to say that was probably 2011, 2012, somewhere in that vicinity. I'm not the best with like number. I can tell you like chronology of time when things happened, but I'm not always the best at remembering the year they happened. The first time someone told me I was meant to be a healer, a profound healer, I was 8 years old. it's a long story, but the Cliff Notes version is we had some friends that kind of lived out in the more open areas of Massachusetts. I was from like the city, and my mom had some friends. We were visiting them. I used to go, they had this like almost like a jungle that was like behind their house that was so cool. It was all these, just like a forest, a jungle. And I used to go back there and play for hours and hours and hours. And it was supposed to be preserved land. And one of the people that lived on this property was an Indigenous person, and she was very involved in her tribal organization and leadership. And they were digging up that land back there. And so I was told, like, you can still play out there, but be careful. There's some equipment out there now. It's like a big fight. They're digging up this land, and it's supposed to be preserved. So I went out there like usual for hours and hours and just got lost in play. I played alone a lot as a kiddo, so this was nothing new. And I just had my own adventures out there. And there was this stone. It was about the size of maybe like a date or a fig, like if you know what that is, like a half of a fig, like a giant grape or I'm trying to give like different things in case you don't. I think most people know what dates are now, right? So like the size of a date, a big one. And it almost looked like a dried berry to me when I saw it in the ground. And I don't know how I saw it, because it's not something that would have been very noticeable. It was kind of like a reddish, deep red, almost like a deep, deep blood red in color, but it wasn't something that was like shiny or that would have stood out, or I literally don't even know how I found it. And I remember standing there looking at it for the longest time, it kind of still half in the ground, because I couldn't quite tell what it was. It was like almost a little bit embedded in the ground, but the reddish part was on top. I thought it was a dried berry of some kind. And I knew I needed to be very careful touching like fruits and berries and herbs and things. We can have another conversation about this on another episode, but there's a strong possibility I was some kind of medicine person in a past life. Because from the time I was a kid, wanted to like get a pestle and mortar and mix leaves and sticks and berries and stuff. But I knew from experience that I had to be very careful about what I touched. I had gotten like poison ivy and poison oak and all kinds of things from my adventures at times. So I already knew to be careful. And I can't tell you because I was 8 how long it was, but it felt like the longest time that I was looking at this stone deciding if I should pick it up or not. But I wanted to pick it up so bad. I wasn't sure it was a rock, though. Like I said, I thought it might be a berry. And finally I decided, okay, I'm going to pick it up. I need to put that in my pocket. And I picked it up, and it was in fact a stone. And I was very excited because I thought it was a berry. And, a couple hours go by, I go back in, and I showed this stone to the ladies of the house and to my mom. And the woman said, "Oh my gosh, do you know what this is?" I can't remember what type of stone it is or it was. But she said, "This is a healer stone. Only the medicine person of the tribe can find and even touch and pick up this stone. The stone hides itself," I guess is the way the story goes. So she said, so I guess it wasn't such a Cliff Notes version of my story, but she said, you're a healer. You're supposed to be a healer. And it just stuck with me. And I didn't, I was 8, so I kind of dismissed it and didn't know what that meant and just kind of went on about my merry way, but stuck back there in my mind somewhere. And it just was so fascinating when, almost 30 years later, probably 25 years later, here was some other person saying like, "Oh no, you're a healer. You've been a healer before. You're supposed to be a healer." So sometimes these little messages in the world, these messengers in the world can come to us over a short period of time, a week or a couple weeks period. And sometimes it can be over our whole life. Maybe there are things that were said to you or about you when you were young or throughout your life that you're like, you know what, over my whole life, people have always said that about me, or always said that I should be a therapist, or always said, do you know what I mean? So it doesn't always mean it's in a very short period of time, but just be paying attention to, if you're hearing the same thing over and over in the world, how these like messengers of the universe are coming in the world. And we can all be a messenger of the universe too. Have you ever said something to someone and they were like, you know what, it's so weird, somebody else just said that to me, or somebody told me that last week about myself? Or so we can all be influenced and used or impressed upon by, inspired by the universe to be a messenger to someone else as well. The universe isn't totally random. Like I said, there's chaos here, so not everything happens for a reason, but the universe isn't totally random. Every sign, synchronicity, and redirection is a reminder that you're being guided, supported, and called to step into a greater version of yourself for the experiences that your soul wants for this lifetime. So just notice them. I'm so curious to know what you think about these 7 signs that the universe is communicating with you. How many, when I was saying them, were you like, oh yeah, I have an example for that in my own life? Have you like experienced all 7 of these? I would love to know. Drop a comment wherever you're listening to this, or you can even drop a comment on the social media clips that I'm going to post of this. Sometimes the signs are subtle, right? Like repeating numbers or a song lyric that sticks with us. And other times these signs really shake things up, kind of pushing us out of our comfort zone where all the growth happens outside there so we can grow and expand and express to a new level. The key isn't just to see the signs, but to trust them. We're not going to always know what they mean immediately, but just noticing and trusting and continuing to move with them is really important. So when something keeps showing up for you, don't just dismiss it. Pause, listen, ask, what is this showing up for me? Or what is this showing me or pointing me towards? What am I being invited to shift, to embrace, or to release? Have I been needing support and now I'm being shown I'm not alone? Is this just a hello from the universe? The universe isn't working against you, it's working for you. Even delays, detours, and shakeups are often rerouting you to something greater. Stay open, stay curious, and most importantly, trust yourself along the journey. Let me know if you've liked these 7 signs wherever you are listening to this or watching it. I would love if you would give the podcast a subscribe. I haven't made a big announcement about this yet, but we are actually in the top 5% of podcasts. And so it would really help me to expand our pod squad and get this out to more people. If you just give a little subscribe wherever you're watching this, go to the homepage and subscribe, give a little like, leave a comment, or especially leave a review on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or even YouTube. That is really helpful for the pod. And so many of you are listening and not subscribed, so please subscribe. And I hope that you enjoyed and could see yourself in these 7 signs. And now that they're top of mind and you're thinking about them, let's see how they start coming into play over these next weeks and months. As always, I am so grateful to have you here with me as a fellow traveling soul in this very interesting journey of our lifetime. Big hugs, lots of love. Bye for now from inside Spirit Speakeasy.